Hi, my name is Steve Gaskin. I was formerly a Detective Chief Inspector in the Metropolitan Police Service. I now teach in schools. I'm a lecturer, and I quite often appear on the TV. But this is all about offender profiling. So I thought what would be quite interesting is in 1998, which goes back a few years, I reopened a couple of murder cases in the London Borough of Hounslow, so Reed sort of Heathrow Airport. And what I'd like to do is to share that with you. So what I'm going to then do, and your teacher's going to ask you to do, is to produce an offender profile. So here we go. I've got a short presentation for you, which will give you all the information, hopefully. So we can just see that now. And we're just going to make sure that we remove all of the floating controls. So as I say, you can see who I am there. Absolutely no problem. So let's move on with that. So yeah, that's who I am, former DCI, criminal psychologist, a crime TV pundit, and I've investigated real life cold cases and murder cases. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at four unsolved murders, possibly a fifth. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about the victims, the history, and the police response. And as a direct result of that, what I'd like you to do is to look at the two approaches to offender profiling. The first one being the FBI approach, which is known as the top to bottom approach, where it systematically goes through various avenues of a police investigation. And then also just have a look at the bottom to top approach. And that is the sort of Professor David Cantor and the European view that where people are not put into tight categories or suspects for offender profiling, it's believed that there's something going on in that person's life which would reflect their offender behaviour in offender profiling. Sorry, that's quite long-winded, but let's just have a look at this. Let's have a look at this. Suspects.
Some bastard has got away with it. That's my aim.
My search for answers takes me from 1970s London to modern-day Europe and the Far East. It reveals mistakes that were made and exposes a predator in uniform. This suspect was a serving Metropolitan Police officer. There's a bonfire. Looking at this guy's profile, I would say he was capable of anything. So you can see there that that short clip there was called the Playboy Bunny Club murders. Let's go back quickly on that. That is on ITV catch up. So do feel free to have a look at it. So this is what I did, is if you can imagine, and let's hope, and I know that some of you will get to professional posts like I did, maybe through criminal analyst, criminal psychologist, or senior police officer. But this is what I was confronted with. And what I'd like you to do is just to have a look at the top two there, which is Lynn Whedon and Liz Paravicini. So I'd like to set the scene, 1998. So I was a DCI at Hounslow Police Station. And I decided to have various strategies to try and reduce overall crime. And one of those was burglaries, which was seemed to be out of control. Anyway, what I did is I decided one Friday to talk to my three deputies, three DIs, and I said, I want on Monday morning all unsolved murders in this borough, the London Borough of Hounslow, which is quite close to Heathrow, on my desk by Monday morning. Well, a pantechnicon load of paper turned up, and I had to sift and sort through those to prioritise a skill that I'm sure you're learning even now. And what I saw very, very quickly were these two cases. One if you have a look on the top there, Lynn Whedon. And can I just say that these are very, very sad cases. So Lynn Whedon, you can see there, she was murdered on the 10th of September 1975. She was 16. She was a schoolgirl, and she just really had her GCSE results, and they were going to celebrate that. And she was forced into a small electric substation, and she was raped and murdered. And it was blunt force trauma. Jumping ahead a bit, and this murder was in the London Borough of Hounslow in Middlesex. So jumping forward a bit, and I've had the opportunity to read all the case papers, which for the first two were two sets of paper about 30 centimetres thick. Okay. So I had to read through those. And it became very obvious to me that these two cases, Lynn Whedon and Liz Paravicini, were linked by way of method. That is for sure. I've got two maps that I'm going to show you later on in this short presentation. But the jumping forward a bit, if you look, the method of murder for both was very, very similar. And in fact, I haven't got the case papers anymore. I'm not allowed access to those because I'm a retired officer. But I remember distinctly looking at the statements of the pathologist in the case, and that's what the top to bottom will approach asks you to do, and that is to consider the forensic medical examiner, in this case, it was a pathologist, and the method, the actual cause of death over the cranium or the skull was something resembling a blunt instrument, possibly a truncheon. So that is what I was confronted with. And so I investigated that case until such times I retired because I couldn't, it was a cold case, but it was to the point that I got the victims' relatives to the police station and told them that some 20 years later, I was cold case reviewing these and there were no promises. And then I retired. But in retirement, this is what I found, which is very, very interesting. If you go, and what I want you to do now is to have a look at the two lower ones. There was a DNA link between Lynn Whedon and Eve Stratford. Eve Stratford was murdered in March, slightly earlier than Lynn Whedon, in 1975. She was a bunny girl. That means that she was operating up in Park Lane as a croupier, dealing cards, gambling for money. But her MO was completely different. And the most frustrating things was that whilst there was a DNA linkage between the two, there was no sign that at all as to who the suspect was. And again, if you look to the bottom right-hand side quadrant, there is Linda Farrow, who was also a croupier. So there was a linkage there. She was murdered some 4 years later, and she was stabbed repeatedly and had her throat cut. And these two murders, the bottom two, were in the East End of London. So if you have a look at this map here, the dots will show you TD, that's the sort of call sign for Hounslow, and the other two. So they're on the other side of London. But I think it's fair to say that certainly as a strategy, you put all four together. These are pictures of the victims here. This is the victimology, which I find quite interesting. And I can't find any coloured photographs of Liz Paravicini and Linda Farrow, but it'd be quite interesting for you to comment what you think the similarity is, because victimology is so important to look at. What is the linkage between all four? Certainly are more so than actually why they were picked upon, but where did they live? Where did they socialize? Everything you'd need for a profile. So these are really, really important. And I'm not going to, obviously, what I want to do is to give you some clues because you're not offender profilers. But this is the route that Liz Paravicini who was murdered between the 8th and 9th of September. And she went up to central London. Her name's Paravicini because she got married to an Italian man, and she was back here on holiday to see her mum and dad. So she went up to the she went up to the central London. Let's just go back here. She went up to central London, and right in the middle of this diagram, you'll see Osterley Tube Station. So what Linda's route was, very, very sadly, on this terrible night, is you can see there's Osterley Station. She took this route along here. This was about 11 o'clock in the evening. And this road is highly, highly significant. It's called the Great West Road. So you can see there's a hotel there, and off she goes to Church Road, where there's an attempt there for a serious sexual offence, and she is bludgeoned to death. And very sadly, the next day, her father found her, which is extremely sad. Now, the Lynn Weedon murder, again, this is highly significant because she started off her journey just here, again on the Great West Road, continued down here. There's Osterley Tube Station, walk down here. Again, I want you to comment on this road. And this is about 9 o'clock in the evening. You can see here it's just starting to get dark. And she was dragged into an electric substation there and battered to death. And she was subject to serious sexual offences. But what I want to do here on both diagrams, you'll see that there's a red dot there. And that's just giving you a head start. And what I'd like you to do is to comment on that. This is so going back here, there is to both of these cases, so Liz Paravicini and Lynn Weedon, there is very, very little evidence, even now, and we're talking now in 2025, as to the possible suspect. I have walked these routes literally hundreds of times during the daytime, during the night time, in the middle of the night, to try and adduce some evidence. What I will tell you there, the terrain, which is important, is because it is an arterial road into central London, it's quite noisy. It's also quite eerie. So when I've walked up and down it, there is very, very little residential houses on both sides of the road. Obviously, with when you look at, let's go back to Liz Paravicini, yes, walking up to Church Road, there is, but it's dark. It is quite eerie, I suppose is the right way, and it's quite secluded. This is the investigation chronology, and you can see there the offences take place. They're investigated at Hounslow Police Station, and then Eve Stratford is investigated separately at Enfield in London. In 1998, as I say, I reopened this case for fresh leads. I then retire, and then a friend of mine, a guy called Colin Sutton, takes up the inquiry. However, his attention is put onto a live case, a serial killer who's been convicted called Levi Belfield. And then a colleague of mine, Martin Lee, reviews the case, and it's passed to a major investigation team. So as a byproduct, you can see that the police never put these cases down. And then the case is still open, and they are harvesting DNA. So just finally as well, and this is very, very close by, it just so happens that Patsy Morris, aged 14, a schoolgirl, was murdered on Hounslow Heath, which is very, very close to the two first murders. And she was a student at Feltham Comprehensive School, a local school. And unfortunately, the case still remains unopened. So I suppose really what I'd like you to do is to concentrate on the first two, Lynn Weedon and Liz Paravicini, and go through the process of offender profiling. I'm not asking you to come up with one, but what I am going to do is to send your teacher a result of my inquiries so far, just so you can see how the case finished up. There is also this documentary that's called The Playboy Bunny Club Murders. it's worth having a quick look at that. And there are conflicting theories as to what took place. My issue was simply around the evidence. But what I'd like you to do, as I say, particularly the top to bottom approach, go through that and just see how you get on. So, been an absolute delight talking to you, and just go through that process. And please do enjoy your study.